Mike.
Michael Schwartz from the New York Times. Thanks for taking the time. I'd like to say just off the bat that my newspaper is still very, very interested in this case. So if you have any, insights that you'd like to share, we'd love to hear them. I wanted to go back to the proofs that you keep speaking about. Obviously, the why is elusive, but the British side has laid out a pretty detailed explanation of the how and the who. I think, you know, in both in your presentation today and in others I've heard from Ms. Zakharova, Lavrov, and your colleagues in Britain, you've sort of seized on some initial confusion about what the substance was and the timing, and have put that forth as evidence of some kind of conspiracy. But sort of when you step back and look at the whole picture, you know, a narrative, albeit with holes, kind of emerges. You know, this substance, I think there was some initial confusion about what it was, but you know, it has been, the OPCW has backed up the British findings on that. You've got CCTV coverage of these individuals arriving in the UK, traveling together to Salisbury, and a sort of.
Sorry, OPCW didn't back it because it has nothing to do with the CCTV coverage of this.
Not that. No. I'm talking about the substance. The OPCW backed the British findings. The findings important down on the substance. You do have CCTV coverage. The British authorities have identified two individuals that they refer to, used an alias to enter into the country. One would assume has their real identities. Those real identities, I believe, have been published by another organization whose name I'm sure you know. And so I'm wondering if you could drill down into some of these, drill down into this narrative presented by the British side about what happened here, and sort of address the specifics of the case. This substance was used. The OPCW did back it up. These two individuals appear to be in the vicinity of the Skripal's home on the day that the poisoning is said to occur. I'm curious, sort of, given those facts, kind of what more evidence do you think the British should provide you to make you feel more comfortable with how their investigation is proceeding?
Frankly speaking, with all due respect, in what you said, I haven't heard a single evidence, a single proof. Because anything that is being enumerated like this can be questioned, very seriously questioned by serious investigation. I will answer your question. First of all, I would like to remind you what was, as you said, the British side in detail explained its reasoning why Russia was behind this and gave a proof. So the only narrative that we had, I can quote it. It was Prime Minister Theresa May's statement on 12 March, which hasn't actually changed during the year. So I will quote it. Russia's record of conducting state-sponsored assassination and our assessment that Russia views some defectors as legitimate targets for assassinations made us conclude that this is highly likely that Russia was responsible for the act against Sergei and Yulia Skripal. There are therefore only two plausible explanations of what happened in Salisbury on 4th March. Either this was a direct act by the Russian state against our country, or the Russian government lost control of their potentially catastrophically damaging nerve agent and allowed it to get into the hands of the others. That's it. It hasn't changed. It hasn't changed since that time. Nothing new was given for the OPCW and for the substance.
I mean, they did identify two people who were involved, and they provided a fairly detailed timeline, albeit with some holes in it, about the whereabouts of the two individuals, as well as found traces of the substance in the hotel room the individuals were supposed to have stayed at. So they haven't provided nothing since that statement from Theresa May.
It's something, but again, I told you that they could identify any person from the Aeroflot flight. And it's happened that these two came to Salisbury, which is not a crime, as you admit. There are, as you put it, there are some holes, but these holes explain everything. For example, it is absolutely known that they could find themselves in the vicinity of Skripal's house, which is not proven, by the way. They just went to this direction, but there is no CCTV coverage. provided to us. It is very hard to believe that, for example, Sergei Skripal, being in such a situation and knowing that he could arise some interest, didn't have a CCTV system in his house. But okay, it's up to British side to tell us. And that there are no CCTV cameras in the neighborhood of the house. But okay, we could buy it. But even physically, even theoretically, if we imagine that they are the assassins, they could have found themselves in the vicinity of Skripal's house at around 1 p.m. According to the police, it's not my data, it's police data. And again, according to the police, the Skripals left their house at around 9 by car and never returned back. This is a small hole, but it's important to bridge this gap, because otherwise you don't understand. If we imagine that they were the assassins, if we imagine that they put this substance on the doorknob, how would Skripals get in contact with this? What kind of substance was this? You mentioned OPCW. Okay, we all trust in OPCW, but the OPCW procedures were broken by the British side. Since the very beginning, there should have been joint investigation, and we, Russia, as an accused side, should have given the specimen of this investigation, of this substance. The OPCW team got the specimen of the blood in the hospital several days after the incident has happened. It didn't take it on the place. And again, I would also quote that this, I have it somewhere, that it was taken in a very pure form, which is very suspicious, because after several days it should have interacted with blood, with something else. So even from this point of view, this analysis is very questionable. There are a lot of things like this. So who could trust this expertise when people bring you to the hospital, say, okay, there are 2 people there, they were poisoned, take their blood samples. You don't know what was injected to them. I think at that time, I may be mistaken, but it was said that they were unconscious at this time. So what could happen to them? Who would trust this kind of things? This is very important. These are not details. These are not holes. These are things on which the whole theory against Russia is based. So they ask us, they tell us, okay, you have these 2 people who committed this crime. We ask them a question. Tell us, how did they do it physically? What were they doing in Salisbury? Show us the CCTV footage. Explain to us how could Skripals get in touch with this substance if they left the house earlier? Explain to us this inconsistency. They don't. How come that this substance is on the one hand very stable and keeps intact for several weeks or months? On the other hand, it flies away. So those people who get in contact with the Skripals place and in other zones, they are not affected. It's not logical. Either there are many substances or there is something missing in this.
Can I just a quick follow-up question, just a more global question. So you've got the British side who say that sort of insists that 2 officers from the Russian GRU came to Salisbury last year with the intent to assassinate a former GRU officer, and is sticking to that. There doesn't seem like there's going to be any chance that they're going to back away from that anytime soon. You've got the Russian side saying that absolutely didn't happen, and you know, based on things that you've said, suggest that there's some kind of a conspiracy involved to make it look like the Russians may have carried this out. How do Russia and Britain move forward beyond this, and maybe not just the theoretical or a hypothetical question about that, but have you seen any contacts reemerge in the year, diplomatic contacts or any sort of back-channel contacts reemerge between the British and Russian governments in the year since the Skripal poisoning happened that would suggest to you that relations are sort of settling back into some kind of normalcy?
It takes 2 to tango, you know. So we are ready to dance, no problem, but don't have a partner since the very beginning. I can assure you that there are no backstage contacts whatsoever. The only 2 questions the British side want to ask us to answer is Putin himself poisoned them, or did he lose grip of some group of individuals or of the substance? That's the only thing the Brits are interested. There are no contacts whatsoever. We sent, again, if you bother to to read this document that I'm mentioning, this compendium prepared by our embassy in London, you will see in attachment, in annex, a lot of notes that we were sending with requests, with asking for us to get involved in this investigation. We want to answer any questions, any serious questions about investigation. But again, you can't pinpoint all of a sudden 2 individuals that happened to be in Britain, no matter what was their, where do they work or where did they work. But you can't say that these people are to blame only because they came to Britain and they happened to be in Salisbury. Give us proofs. Show to us the proofs. Give us some plausible explanation how it could be done. I'm not speaking about why they could do it. Again, this is another hole. Why would Russia seek to do it if we had, Mr. Skripal in our possession for 8 years? What is the value of Mr. Skripal again after this all this time? You know that all these secrets they have the tendency, the trend to expire after some time. What's the point of getting him in Britain? What's the point of getting Yulia Skripal in Britain when she lives in Russia? What at all is her connection there? Wouldn't it be easier to get rid of one person and with some more easy way, I would say? Again, this is from detective stories, as all of us know. They don't explain this kind of thing. They just say Russia is behind this because nobody else could. If you buy this, okay, you continue to believe in this, but we don't buy this. We need proofs. They absolutely do not cooperate with us. The fate of this investigation, I'm quite sure, would be the same as the fate of Litvinenko investigation. Everything will be made top secret. They will say the truth is established. We know that Russia did it, but we can't tell you, and we can't tell anybody because this is top secret. Maybe after 30 or 50 years, we will learn some details about this when they are declassified, if someday they are declassified. But the fate is the same. Now nothing is happening. Everybody is satisfied by the way that people believe and experts believe that Russia did it, but no proofs are on the table.